Hello and welcome. I'm Gohar Raza and you are watching Eureka, a program that brings you face to face with one of the outstanding scientists of the country. Today we have a special guest, special in the sense that she happens to be the link between basic fundamental sciences and translational science. Welcome, Dr. Professor Chitra Sarkar.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a basic question which people like me won't know in depth. What is it that you specially work on?
The area of my work is actually called neuropathology, the broad area of neuropathology. So neuropathology is the study of diseases of the brain, the spinal cord, muscles and nerves. And the word pathos is actually a Greek word, which means pathology comes from a Greek word, pathos meaning disease and logos meaning precise to disease. So you have many subspecialties in pathology, of which neuropathology deals with the diseases, their causes, the processes, the developments and the consequences of diseases of the brain, spinal cord, muscle and nerves. In that, we have again further subspecializations, and neuro-oncology deals with tumors of these areas, tumors of the brain and spinal cord, which I largely work on, or my research work is largely on that. And we have a lot of work on neuromuscular diseases, which deal with diseases of the nerve and muscles, which are interconnected. Then we have epilepsy, which is a very large and upcoming area. And the pathology of epilepsy, especially something called intractable epilepsy, which does not respond to the usual drugs of medicine and have a surgical remedy, which are called as surgical remediable epilepsies. The pathology of all these is another area that we specialize in. And then you have neuroendocrine tumors. For example, the pituitary is a neuroendocrine organ within the brain. So neuroendocrinology, also the pituitary tumors like pituitary adenomas, comes within neuropathology. So basically, it is a science of studying diseases and its causes of the brain and of the central and peripheral nervous system, if I can put it.
The gray matter, as generally we call it, is probably the finest form of the matter that we know of. And it's the most delicate tissues that you deal with. How difficult it is to touch the brain when there is something wrong with it?
I think now with the advances in neuroimaging especially, one can get a fair idea of the lesions of the brain. Because neuroimaging with CT, then MRI, and then MRS, and PET scans and everything gives a very good imaging of the brain before you actually go and touch it, You find a lesion in the brain, what we call as a space-occupying lesion, be it an infective lesion or be it a vascular lesion or a tumor or something like that, which comes out on the scan. Then you before you touch it. And then there is a lot
of preparation is required before you go and touch the brain, either directly or indirectly, because it's extremely delicate part of the body.
But neurosurgery also has advanced in by leaps and bounds. Neurosurgical techniques and advances in the surgical techniques, including you have an MRI machine inside the OT, so you have brain suites these days. So everything has become very modernized. So like a few decades back when touching the brain could have been dangerous, now with the modern neurosurgical techniques, these surgeries have become actually very very modernized, the surgical tools and the surgical methodologies. So the backup of neuroradiology and the advancement of neurosurgery has helped to touch the brain easier. Then you actually have microscopes at which, microneurosurgery, you look at, the lesions which have to be done endoscope. So there's a lot of, advancement in neurosurgery. So actually the whole of the neurosciences has advanced in leaps and bounds in the last few decades. The year of the brain, followed by many other advances, has led to it not being as dangerous as, say a few decades back, when people thought if I have something in the brain, there is nothing which, which
Nothing can be done.
Nothing can be done. But now a neurosurgeon goes in, takes out the tumor, and if it happens to be benign or very low grade, a good surgical resection can give you a good outcome. And if required, if it's malignant, then you have supplemented it with radio and chemotherapy. So it's not that the surgical techniques are any more as dangerous as it was a few years back. And the imaging gives you a very good guide, and operative imaging, etc., can also contribute in a big...
See, I was reading the literature on it, and two things disturbed me immensely. One is that in India, we have cases of problems of this kind that you are talking about higher than other countries. And among children especially, it's very, very high. What is the reason for that?
One group of conditions which could be higher in India as compared to the West are the infections, of which tuberculosis, meningitis, tuberculomas of the brain, especially in children, are extremely common and more frequent than in the Western countries.
12 to 13%.
Yes, around
as
that.
Your survey has
shows.
Showed.
So the tumors and the other lesions are possibly not any way different from the Western statistics, because our publications at least show that the incidence and the frequency of different types of tumors is practically the same as in the West. But there are some tumors which occur about a decade younger in our population, like some of the high-grade gliomas, malignant lymphomas, possibly primary CNS lymphomas, as we call them, occur about a decade younger than in the Western population. The stroke, as you know, is becoming very common in our country too. It's a big problem for the neurologists. Infections, which include not only tuberculosis, but various viral infections of the brain, also are quite common in our country. Epilepsy is another huge problem also, which we have in India. And before imaging and the main centers which have come up to deal with epilepsy surgery, we never recognized this entity of intractable or surgical remediable epilepsy. But now that we know that there are a good number of cases which can be treated by surgery, so this has also become a very good sort of a tool to treat epilepsy.
I'll have to take a break, but the discussion will continue. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back. Welcome back. Professor Chitra Sarkar, we were discussing the brain tumor. That is your specialization. Why should country spend so much of money on facilities that are extremely expensive, and we may get the corrective measure, we may take corrective measures, we may seek help from other countries instead of generating this expertise within the country? A lot of people will say, don't spend on science, spend on something else, because you can get knowledge from outside. Why spend so much of money on basic sciences?
Okay, if I can answer this from the point of view of pediatric tumors, because in children, brain tumors are the second commonest malignancy after leukemias and lymphomas. And this is the statistics both in the West and in our own country in a multicentric study that we have got.
And overall, it is among the 10 most rampant
cancers.
Yes.
Even in adults, it's according
very,
to the ICMR bulletin also, it's among the top 10 cancers. Number two, not only in children, it affects young adults also. So the population that it is affecting happens to be a very important part of our society, children and young adults. And we need to, they are very important for the family. They are very important socially. So in order to save lives, we need to study these diseases and or these tumors, if I can say, that the brain tumors of children, young adults, and also get an in-depth knowledge of them, whether they are because genetic alterations, whether they are the same in our group of tumors in our country versus what is reported in Western literature, whether the treatment modalities that we are using will be the same and give the same sort of outcome based on our limitations and our strengths as reported in Western literature. So it is, I think, extremely important because oncology in general, not only neuro-oncology, but oncology in general is becoming, cancer is becoming a very, very important disease of our country. It's not, it's not as rare as it used to be earlier. So cancers in different organs, you know, and brain happens to be the most challenging of them. And we don't still have answers to many of them. But I must tell you that there is a pediatric brain tumor called medulloblastoma, in which it's one of the commonest childhood malignant grade 4 tumors. But in the recent, say about a decade, there has been so much of advancement in the pathobiology, I should say, the genetics of this tumor, the epigenetics, and various other treatment modalities, that now with good surgical resection and radio and chemotherapy in the best of centers, you have 80% to 90% 5-year survival rates for a grade 4 malignant tumor. Then you have low-grade tumors in children called as pilocytic astrocytomas, which again with just a surgical resection, with no radio or with no chemotherapy, can have 5-year 100% survivals.
So if we don't have this expertise within the country, then nobody is going to help us.
No.
This expertise has to be developed within the country, and therefore basic sciences are extremely important. You have been referring time and again, children. Children are most susceptible section of society which can get affected very intensely by that. Let's go back to your childhood. Did you dream to become the international expert on tumors, and that to brain tumors?
I'll be honest, I never dreamt at that time that this is the subject that I would do in the long run. I was good at biology, not too much at maths, and I was very much interested in science, and my role model were my parents, especially my father, who happened to come from a chemistry background, but had dreams that I should become a doctor. And as you know, in our days,
it was his dream, which was translated into the next generation.
Yes, it was his dream translated into me. And of course, a lot of encouragement from him that I should, you know, do well in my academics.
But you wanted to become gynecologist. How did you land up doing pathology?
This was more, I should say, a sort of a family pressure, in the sense that when I came to AIIMS graduation, I was very keen on doing gynecology, but the family said gynecology is too busy a specialty and you would find no family time, whereas pathology in those days was a little more laid back, not, at least in AIIMS it is not, so it's very heavy. And and that's how, you know, I should say that the family played a big role in my taking up pathology.
But you don't regret it?
No, of course I don't regret it, because I had wonderful teachers and wonderful mentors in pathology, because those were the days when I should say the stalwarts of pathology were at the Department of Pathology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Professor Ramling Professor Talwar was in biochemistry. Professor Ramling Goswami, Professor Naik, Professor H.D. Tandon, Professor Subimal Roy where all and Professor M.G. Deo, they were all there in the Department of Pathology, each, an international figure. Then in neurosurgery, I had two great mentors, Professor P.N. Tandon, who is a legendary figure, and Professor Banerjee. So all these people helped and encouraged the specialty of neuropathology, which in the early 80s was in its infancy. And they told me that there's a wide scope and you can develop this area, which is, a very small, at least now, is in its infancy in pathology, and maybe you can have a great future with the neurosciences coming up simultaneously. So that's how I entered into neuropathology with so many good teachers and mentors encouraging me. And it all started, and it has been going on for the last 25 years.
I'm sure some of your teachers are watching this program and must be very proud of you. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back. Welcome back. Professor Chitra, you didn't dream of becoming a pathologist, an international figure, but you wanted to be a doctor and not a pathologist. At that time, you wanted to be a gynecologist. Did you dream of coming to All India Institute of Medical Sciences? At that time, only All India Institute of Medical Sciences in the country, the center of probably universe for any doctor in the country at that time.
That was also, I must say, my father's dream, and my mother also encouraged me quite a lot.
But she resisted in the beginning that you should come to Delhi.
She was only a little bit in being a complete, like any other mother. She thought that I was a single child of my parents, so she was a little hesitant to send me so far. But at the same time, she wanted me to do well in life.
From Bangalore to Delhi.
Yes, from Bangalore to Delhi. So at the same time, she wanted me to pursue my career in the premier medical institution of the country. But my father was very persistent that he wanted me at least to give the entrance exam and see whether I get selected or not. But I have to try it out. And then we would decide whether I would continue or whether I would go back to Bangalore. But as luck would have it, and as my fate was, maybe at AIIMS, and by God's blessings, I got selected at the very first, attempt in pathology at AIIMS. And then my father was so happy, and my mother also was so happy. And I must give a lot of credit to my uncle and my grandparents who used to stay in Delhi at that time, my maternal uncle, my aunt, and my grandparents.
So all the family support conspired
yes,
to you, to make you into a first-rate
yes,
expert in pathology.
And I must also say that I have been very lucky in getting excellent colleagues in my neuropathology section, excellent heads of departments, excellent chiefs of the neurosciences center, all of which have been, and my technical lab staff, my students, all of whom have been extremely supportive throughout this long career in developing the specialty and taking it from morphology to molecules, in getting us to write chapters in the WHO textbook of classification of CNS tumors, both in the 4th edition, and now we are in 2 chapters in the 5th edition, which has brought India really in the map of neuropathology in the country. And I attribute my success not to me, to my family, and to my colleagues, my teachers, my mentors, and to everybody, and my lab staff and my students particularly.
How humble. I wanted to ask you that you've done so much, and you have published, your first paper was published, if I am right, 30 years back. And you were very excited about it. That's what you have written. But during these 30 years, you've been a prolific writer as far as research papers are concerned. On an average, you've published about one paper a month. It's large number. How did you manage it?
Okay, I could divide my publications into actually two types. One would be the full-length original articles, which are actually lab-related work, and my contributions. The other, as a pathologist, we have very interesting patient cases, what we call as case reports. So we tend to, share these interesting cases with in literature, because then you get an idea that a particular spectrum can present in this interesting rare way, or a rare tumor, or a morphological interest, or interesting lesion, or something like that, or a radiological and clinical diagnosis of X, but on pathology it turns out to be Y, and it's a total sort of a surprise to the clinician. I thought this and it turned out this. So the original full-length papers would not be as many.
If I am understanding it correctly, then these two types of paper make you the bridge between the basic science expert and what can be implemented immediately for the benefit of the treatment.
Yes, I think so. You are very right. I do agree that the papers on basic research, which are the full-length lab papers, give an insight into the biology of disease, of tumors especially, that I have been working on, whereas those are the clinical sort of clinico-pathological, radiological correlations, which are more like, interesting from the point of view of the clinicians and the patient diagnosis and the patient treatment point of view. So these form sort of an understanding, sort of a basic science vis-a-vis this. So my window to the world has always been by publication, and most people may not have seen me in a lot of international meetings and so forth, but know me my name because of my publication. So in my initial years, when because of various reasons I couldn't travel very much, I used this as a media to the world and to place our center, our lab, as well as India in the map, I think. And now, I mean, just to mention, I have been nominated as the first Indian to be the vice president in the International Society of Neuropathology.
Congratulations.
And this is mainly because of, this window to, I found publications as the window to the world when I could not travel, family issues, because yes, as a woman, I have responsibilities to home. I care for my family, and they have given me so much. So in that way, I have, I really
Your
have.
work has been recognized internationally. You are on every committee that one can think of. You are part of so many science academies all over the world. Would you like to sign off by giving a message to the younger generation, or your message is that be a support like my daughter has been to me?
My message to the younger generation is that one should be focused and work sincerely and with a passion. The passion is what takes you to the top. If you don't have the passion for whatever is the subject you take off, whether it is something to relate to cancer as I have done, or any other subject in medicine or whatever it is, if you have the passion, you can really build yourself up. So there has to be passion, which is accompanied by hard work, sincerity, honesty, and that is what is possible for, I think, behind success, if I can say that.
That is just wonderful. Thank you very much for giving so much of time to us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure for me too to be here, and thank you for this honor.
Be passionate, hard work, sincerity. This is the road to success. That is the message that we take home today. We'll come back with another outstanding scientist next week. Keep watching Eureka. If you have any question, query or comment, do write to us. Our email address is eurekarstv@gmail.com. Till then, goodbye.